No, we're not condoning divorce. Gina and I totally believe it's one man, one woman for a lifetime. But when the jar's been broken, how do you pick up the pieces and try to take his kids, her kids, our kids, and make the family whole again? That's a tough issue.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's edition of First Person. I'm Wayne Shepherd, and today we have two guests who will tell their story of God's faithfulness even in the circumstances of divorce and remarriage. Husband and wife Craig and Gina Morgan will visit with us today with help for blended families. I'll introduce them to you in a moment, but first, please take a few minutes to log on to our website for First Person. You'll find additional information about today's guests and topic, a calendar of upcoming programs, and an archive of all past First Person interviews. It's online at firstpersoninterview.com. Craig and Gina Morgan were married in 1996 after both experiencing the pain of divorce. Theirs became a blended family when they each brought children, a total of 7, to the marriage. Now they seek to help other families who are struggling with the issue of raising children who are blended together in their new families. Craig and Gina have chosen it as their mission to make the family whole again. And a few months ago, I sat down to talk with them, our conversation taking place in a busy hallway at a convention in Nashville. Now, Craig and Gina had both been divorced about 3 years when they married, and I started by asking Craig if he was still working on his feelings following his divorce when he met Gina.
I was still working through it. I probably thought at the time, Wayne, I had gone through it, but I obviously, as I look back and reflect now, I had not finished that process. I still had anger issues. I still had trust issues. And down deep, I just was still angry at God for, why did you allow me to go through what I went through? So I was coming out of it, but I was not through it.
And I'm sure you're both aware of the statistics of second and third marriages and how many of them fail. That had to be sobering and a part of your decision-making to remarry, Gina.
Yes, very much so. Me bringing 4 boys into the marriage, and then Craig having a son and a daughter, and then we have one between us. We know the statistics are very high on the second marriage. And of course, kids are always good at dividing and conquering as well. We have very smart children.
If they see an opening, they rush for it, don't they?
Absolutely. Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
So talk to me more then about the process for you, Craig, and how the Lord got a hold of you and turned you around, really.
He really did, Wayne. It was October 19th, 1998. I had gone to a leadership conference that a business colleague had recommended I go attend. And I'm thinking I'm going to this leadership conference to learn about how to become a better leader in business. But before the conference even started, the gentleman that was hosting the conference said, I have 3 goals to this weekend. The first is that by tomorrow at 4 o'clock, you want to be a better leader. The second is that I want to give you strategies to help you become a better leader. But this was the line. He said, if those 2 things happen, it'll be a good conference. But if this third thing happens, it'll be a great conference. And here's what he said. And that is that God does a new work in your heart.
Did you want to run for the door? Or how did you respond to that?
Actually, what I did was I broke.
Did you right away?
Right.
It's all it took.
It's all it took. I was weeping. I literally felt like God had come down, was sitting beside me and saying, I'm not done with you yet. I still love you. I've been hurting with you, but I'm still here. And I told that weekend when I went home to Gina, I said, honey, I'm a mess. I got to get away, and God and I got to just get together. And that was in 98. We got married January of 96.
Right.
So that was the real turning point for me.
Did you see that immediately, Gina? Did you know something had happened?
I did. I knew something big had happened, and I knew that he wanted to, like he said, get away and sort things out and get together with God and get us and our children and our family all on the right path. We were doing everything wrong and trying to make it work and trying to make a family whole again.
Now, how many you had 6 children or 7 at that time?
We had 7.
You had 7, so we're all 7 at home?
Yes, pretty much.
Okay.
We had 2 that were there about 3 days a week and every other weekend.
So while you 2 are sorting this out, you've got 7 kids, some from your previous marriage, a couple from your previous marriage, and then your own child together that are kind of pulling you in different directions at the same time, right?
Exactly. exactly. I knew when he came home that we were on the right track. I've always had a lot of faith and known that God was never going to leave us in the same place. But I knew then that we were on the right track. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Craig, you go off to meet with God and sort this all out. What was that like, huh?
Oh,
you had to face some pretty tough things?
I really did. I had to sort through all my emotions. I still had anger. The reason I did, Wayne, is because I had this misconceived idea that I was faithful to my wife. She said I was a good dad to 2 kids, and I'm teaching a Sunday school class. And then, so I'm thinking naively, we're up for Couple of the Year award. And next thing I know, I'm finding out this plane is going down and we're getting ready to crash. And I just had to blame somebody. So rather than look at the mirror and look at what I was really doing wrong, I decided to take all my anger out on God. Mm-hmm. And I had to literally get on my knees and repent and fast and pray and say, I'm sorry. Who do I think I am? And I just had to go through that. It was a process more than anything.
I'm sure it wasn't a magic eraser, but did he come home different?
He did. He came home very humbled, and he has continued to go back to the same place every year and get alone with God. And every time he's come home, I've seen just a huge difference. I remember one year when he went, I'm at home thinking, okay, he's off by himself enjoying 3 days alone. I had a stomach bug and happened to have all 7 kids that weekend. And I'm in the bathroom hugging the toilet. And our youngest one says to me, when you're finished, can you cook me some breakfast?
Oh, no.
And I turn around, I think, and he's off having such a great time.
Yes, him and God.
Him and God. So when he calls me, nice? I'm like, you and God, okay.
But you see the importance of doing that every year.
I do.
How would you describe the relationship with your children during this time, both your own biological children and Gina's children?
Great question. I would probably still say fragmented. Mm-hmm. And because I was loyal to my kids, they had my last name and I knew they weren't going to leave me, but I wasn't so sure because I've been down this road before. So it wasn't that I didn't want to embrace Gina and all of her kids. I didn't want the fear of, well, I might get left again, and you want me to be a dad to your kids. So it was still fragmented, like his kids over here and your kids over there, and that's kind of how we treated it.
Again, it didn't heal overnight, I'm sure, Gina, but after Craig came home and things began to change in your marriage, things had to start changing with the kids in some way, didn't they?
In some ways, they were a lot slower coming on board.
They want you to earn it, don't they?
Yes, yeah. And 4 boys are very protective of their mom. That was a little bit of an issue, I think, checking him out still, a couple even years into the marriage.
So was trust a major issue for
the
kids?
Very much.
To trust Craig?
Yes.
Right.
Very much so for my boys. They have come to see he is a man of integrity and honor, and he spent a lot of time with them. He's taught them very valuable things. Mm-hmm.
And your relationship with your own children while you're struggling?
Oh, it was very good. We were very tight. We still are. But it is almost like...
Is it a we-they kind of thing right in your own home?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I told my biological kids that we'll be okay. That they knew I was there for them and with them, and I wasn't worried that we would have anything that would tear us apart. But how do I integrate 4 other boys and a new wife? They obviously had some walls up. My daughter probably, like, who's this new lady? Just as her sons said, who's this new cowboy talking about me? Whoa. You're coming in, setting the rule. Who are you?
I appreciate the two of you being so open about this, because in working through it all, and I think you'd be the first to acknowledge that you haven't solved every problem at home. I don't think you have anyway.
Right.
But still, God has taught you some things that you think you can pass on to others, and that has led you to a ministry of working with blended families, a need that you see that's going largely unaddressed in the church today.
It is, Wayne. We both have felt that. In fact, this place that I get to every year, one of the years I just decided to go to the library and I Googled people that were dealing with blended families in the local church. Couldn't find hardly anything, no resources, no books, no seminars, and quite frankly, I don't know if the church really knows how do you embrace a blended family like ours. Does that mean, one of the questions that we addressed once was, well, I've read in Scripture God hates divorce, but I'm divorced. Does that mean he hates me? And I'm like, no. But I can see how the church, how do we deal with this? No, we're not condoning divorce. Gina and I totally believe it's one man, one woman for a lifetime. But when the jar's been broken, how do you pick up the pieces and try to take his kids, her kids, our kids, and make the family whole again? That's a tough issue.
We'll continue our conversation with Craig and Gina Morgan, Help for the Blended Family, today on First Person. Next time on First Person, we'll meet a Christian composer, the man behind Music for the Soul, Steve Seiler.
You know, the work itself is a total joy, and particularly to see somebody's life actually transform, somebody reach out to us and say, because of your song, now I feel this. That's a greater reward than anybody could ever hope to have.
We'll hear Steve's story and the inspiration behind the songs that make music for the soul. Next time on First Person.
Today on First Person, my guests are Craig and Gina Morgan from the Dallas, Texas area, talking about blended families. This is a burden that God has placed on your hearts. You've learned in the crucible, so to speak. You came together as a blended family and learned some lessons that we can all learn from ourselves, those of us who have blended families. So let's pick it up where we left off and the need for this, Gina, in the church.
Yes.
You see that there aren't a whole lot of resources
Absolutely.
to turn to.
Years ago, we've been married 16 years, and years ago, a year or two in our marriage, I noticed and said to Craig, there's no resources out there for what we're going through. There's nothing in the church. There's no Sunday school class, small groups, nothing addressing this. And in some ways, you kind of feel like a second-rate citizen. Mm-hmm. And so that's where it started being a burden on my heart. And as being a room mom for several of our kids in school, I said to him, the majority of these kids in these classrooms come from homes that are in a second marriage or more. And sadly to say also in the church, that is who is a big majority of who is sitting on the pews out there. And it needs to be addressed.
What have you two learned about how to be a blended family, how to blend successfully a family when two people come together with children from previous marriages and the kids need to get along and you need to get along with each other's kids and it needs to be a single family?
Right.
What are some of the things you've learned?
The first thing that really jumped out at me was realignment. My kids came first when I met Gina, and she came second. Now, in a first-time marriage, the wives or the husbands come first, and the kids come second.
Usually has some time to nurture that marriage relationship.
But that's not the way it is in a blended family. The kids are first, and the spouse comes second. So, subconsciously, I'm sure I kept my kids figuratively in first place, and my wife figuratively in second place. And I use this example. It's like figuratively driving a car and I'm putting my wife in the back seat and the kids are in the front. Well,
that paints a picture. Yeah.
Over time, I had to realign and go, whoa, kids, I still love you, but y'all hop in the back, figuratively speaking. Sure. My wife is now in the front, and so and they had to go through that. Whoa, we were first. Who's this new woman coming in and taking first place? And we're so it just takes time, and it's sensitive. And just issues of dealing with, and that was one of the first ones that really impacted me, Wayne.
Gina, did you have similar feelings? You felt loyal to your four boys first?
I did, but I don't think it came as, it wasn't, I had the loyalty for Craig.
She did.
My boys didn't, they didn't necessarily like that.
Yeah, you didn't ignore them.
Right. No, not at all. But they know that I was in alignment with Craig. And I guess some of our struggle and issue, what we had, was that I saw that I was not first in alignment with him.
And that had to hurt.
It did.
She was much more mature than I was. She was much more in alignment with me. and I'm the one that kept her at bay.
Were the kids getting that message that the two of you weren't in sync because of them?
I'm sure they are.
So.
These are smart kids.
Yeah, don't doubt that a bit.
Yeah.
They probably should be doing some of these interviews.
Did they make it more difficult for you, though, or did they kind of empathize with?
Well,
with
let me jump. No, I won't say that. I was going to tease Gina.
No, they did make it. Mine loved to say, "Oh, well, he comes first," and they didn't care for. They knew that was the way it was going to be with me.
Okay,
that he was going to be first.
All right.
She was much quicker. She saw a bigger vision, and I was slower to come along. But I eventually, hopefully, I'm getting there. But she was much better.
What did you do in this realignment issue? I mean, how did you address it? Were there some steps you took? Was there a turning point where you thought, we're finally getting this right?
I know that one of the it was 2003. Remember, honey, we went through a great marriage conference. They called it a boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
I had gotten rid of some baggage that I had kept holding on to, not even knowing really two things: how I'd gotten very selfish. Not that I wasn't already, but I think I was aware of, goodness gracious, Craig, you are really selfish. And number two, I had just put this wall up and I was just judgmental. Those things came down, and I started looking at myself as who I really was. And
so again, it was more about you than about what the kids were doing.
Oh, yeah.
You had to be fixed first.
Absolutely.
I think that's what is so important. I think that we should let couples know too, is that get yourself fixed.
You can't change other people.
No, you can't change other people. But coming into a blended marriage with your own baggage that you've not worked on, I would say it's real important to work on yourself and your marriage first. Because if mom and dad are okay, then everybody below, the kids are
over
okay.
time, it's
and
gonna
they
take
know
care of
that.
itself.
They
Sure.
sense that. My kids, and I know his kids, saw and knew my insecurities. I had some baggage that I had not dealt with from back being in a childhood. With some things that were very hurtful and damaging that happened to me that I thought I had dealt with, and I really had not. So bringing baggage in is very harmful, and so I would say to deal with baggage and get things good between mom and dad first, and everything else starts working out.
So one of the main issues is realignment.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But that's not the only issue.
No.
Wish it were, huh?
Yeah, I wish. There's a whole, who does the discipline and how's it administered? Is it by the step or is it by the biological parent? What about loyalty issues?
And these aren't little kids at this point, are they?
No,
No.
What would you say, honey? They started about from 10 to 2
Right.
when we started
Right.
integrating our
Right.
families, and now they're 29 and 17. So we've been at this, as Gina said, 16 years. So you're right. There's other issues, Wayne.
Okay. So talk to me about discipline. What were some of the things you learned?
Yeah.
Well, we can tell you we did all the wrong things. So
Trial and error.
We can definitely tell you that. I think it's very important, and not knowing this when we went into it, gosh, we wish we'd have had a book on how to blend a family or what to do, what not to do. But it's very important that we've learned that the biological parent disciplines
Right.
the biological children.
Right.
And we didn't do that. I thought, wow, here I've got this wonderful man that can help me with these boys, and if there needs to be discipline done there, or how great that is to have his help.
Didn't work that way.
That's not the right way to do it, and we've learned by trial and error.
It's so true, because I thought that's my responsibility.
Exactly.
So
Because it is in a typical
It
marriage.
is in a typical family, correct. So when I would administer discipline, I'm talking about when the kids would be 4 and 5 years old, and I realized, whoa, she should have been the one doing the disciplining, and I should have been by her side, agreeing with her and affirming her and amening the discipline, but it should have been carried out by mom.
Right.
You know, as I talk to you, I keep surfacing new issues that I haven't thought about. And I'm sure you two have worked through. And one issue is the fact that some kids have a different last name than the other kids. And how does that affect the fact that you're trying to pull together as one family?
Exactly.
How did you handle that?
That is a good question, because coming into this marriage with 4 boys who were very proud of their last name, and of course the comments would come up, oh, well, we're going to do it, the Morgan's way or
I see.
a lot of that came into play,
Okay.
and they
All
were
right.
good at doing
so it's
that.
a natural dividing line
It
that
is.
you wish wasn't there, but because of the name, it's always there.
It's always there. What Craig had said earlier, God really put something on his heart when he was in one of those trips in Tennessee that I believe and know it was from God, because it had such an impact on my boys to let them know that their last name is important for them to know that their last name is it's significant, and that it's their legacy, it's their heritage, and it's very important to them. And I believe what God put on Craig's heart when he was away on one of those trips, getting alone with God, and I know that was spoken to him from God, because it made such a difference in our boys and them knowing the significance of their last name.
We're coming to the end of this conversation, and it's been so enriching to talk to you. And I know there's lots of families out there that this touches a deep need in their home. And I hope that you have an opportunity to address these needs in the future. I know that's your desire.
It is.
To address blended families. But looking on the experience as a whole, how would you sum it up? I mean, no regrets, right?
No. A process to get from point A to point B. And when you say no regrets.
No regrets. In the present marriage, I mean.
Oh, no, not at all. Little did I know in 1993 when we first met what God had in store. And we've seen this is something we're supposed to help the local church with, because there is such a vacuum. There's such a huge need. And with all respect to all the great, wonderful churches, it's how do you deal with it? It's not easy. And so our minister was, in fact, I'll just tell you this in closing, when on Mother's Day one year, he came to us and said, would you speak on Mother's Day? It is the hardest day of the year for stepmoms, and Gina is a role model for our church. And I'd like y'all just to share your testimonial in front of the morning and the late morning service. And I'm like, what? Me? Her? Us? But if there was something that we were doing right, because he saw that need. And as he went on to tell the story that 40% of the kids are raised in a blended family today, and the divorce rate in the church doesn't look any different than the others, so outside the church. So yes, we've seen that need, and so no regrets. We're honored that the Lord would have us play a very small role to help try to make the family whole again, because it's what we're supposed to do.
That's right.
Husband and wife Craig and Gina Morgan with a few of the lessons they have learned about living in a blended family. The Morgans now seek to help other families with some of these same issues and more through a ministry called Blended Together Forever. Through speaking, writing, and conferences, Craig and Gina bring biblical principles to bear on this aspect of parenting. And if you'd like more information about the ministry Blended Together Forever, please visit our website, where you'll find links to their website and resources. You'll find that at firstpersoninterview.com. Once again, that's firstpersoninterview.com. And if you missed any part of today's conversation or would like to pass it on to someone you know would benefit from hearing what you have heard today, this interview will be available online at firstpersoninterview.com. Just click on the Listen button at firstpersoninterview.com, where you'll find today's program as well as all previous interviews. You can also download the podcast version of First Person through iTunes and take it with you on your MP3 player. And don't forget to look us up on Facebook at facebook.com/firstpersoninterview. Next week, you'll meet a songwriter who writes songs with the intention of bringing God's healing to troubled souls. You'll meet Steve Seiler of Music for the Soul next week. Now, with thanks to my friend and producer Joe Carlson, I'm Wayne Shepherd. Thanks for listening to First Person.